It has been 2.5 years since Pierre Gasly was dropped by Red Bull during mid-2019, and since then Gasly in the AlphaTauri has scored 3 podiums in Sao Paulo, Baku and Monza, with the latter being his first ever Grand Prix win in Formula 1. All of this is great, but that's not quite the full story, because at the moment, it really does feel that his second career and his next big chance still doesn't seem to be obviously on the horizon, and 2.5 years on from his Red Bull demotion, he still seems to be stuck with no clear path of where he's going next. The first thing I want to talk about before we get into where Gasly could go in the future is how good is Pierre Gasly right now. Not how good he was 2 years ago or how good he's going to be, but as we sit here at the beginning of 2022, how does he compare to the absolute best on the grid, if that's ultimately who he wants to compete with in similar cars? When it comes to how good Gasly is now, it's not an easy question to answer, because outside of his Red Bull stint, he hasn't really been up against a top driver since. He's shown mega pace and produced all the results, but it's always difficult to know how he compares to the top drivers when his teammates haven't been anywhere near that level. The difficult thing with Gasly for me, and why I'm a little bit nervous, to be brutally honest, to jump on the Gasly bandwagon and go full steam ahead, is that I know the guy has the pace, and I know that he has the overtaking ability, and I know that when he's got a comfortable teammate, he's been as good as he could possibly be after the tough demotion by Red Bull. But there are a lot of people who are now saying that Gasly has proven that he's one of the best drivers in the field, and that he is now a World Championship caliber driver. It's all good bigging up Gasly for what he's achieved since being dropped by Red Bull, but now with those incredible performances and with the hype that he's been able to generate, if now he really is a driver capable of consistent poles and race wins in the right car, we now need to have the tough conversation of comparing him to the absolute best 4 or 5 drivers in the entire grid. It's not about how you compare to drivers like Daniil Kvyat from last year, or even drivers like Esteban Ocon from this year. How does Pierre Gasly right now compare to drivers like Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz, and Lando Norris? If we think that he's proven enough to be picked up by a top team, which I definitely think that he has, it's now time to hold him to the same standards as the absolute best drivers, because that's the level that he'll need to perform at if he wants to deliver and be a success at one of the big teams. The reason why I find Gasly so interesting and intriguing as a driver is that when we talk about the level of the top drivers, he is still a bit of an unknown and a bit of a wild card. If I was to summarize where I rate Gasly, I definitely think that he has proven beyond doubt that he definitely deserves another shot with a top team, or even a team that is on the rise with the potential to get to the front. My only question with Gasly is not his speed or his driving, it's his ability to do it under the massive pressure of a top team, and also being able to beat a world-class teammate. It's one thing to be exceptional in an AlphaTauri against weak teammates, it's a whole different level to then go to a top team with the best drivers on the grid, where the scrutiny is at its absolute highest. Don't get me wrong, I'm not holding what happened at Red Bull in 2019 completely against him and saying that he's the same driver, because he is definitely not. But the truth is that those doubts will still be in the minds of the big teams, and you still can't say with 100% certainty that those same struggles will not come back. Even though Red Bull was a very difficult place to be put in, if we're being honest, how much easier do we think it's going to be in a Mercedes against someone like Lewis, or even in a McLaren against someone like Norris? There's no easy route to being a success if you want to fight at the sharp end of the grid, and Gasly will have to show that he's learned and developed with how to cope with the pressure, not just when things are going great, but also when the team hits a few road bumps. Of course, he's also earned the right, in my opinion, to be put into that position again, and a team needs to give him the chance if they believe in him. He's earned and deserves another opportunity to prove to us that he is a stronger driver mentally, and I can't wait to see what he's going to be able to do when he's put in that place again. So now let's talk about where Pierre Gasly's future in Formula 1 actually is, and beginning with the Red Bull side of things. Now, this is a weird one because Gasly, where he is now, is very comfortable. He's been able to repair his reputation at AlphaTauri and have his best years ever with podiums and even a win, whilst at the same time still kind of hanging on to the prospect of coming back to Red Bull. To me though, I think he's just buying his time at AlphaTauri and with Red Bull because quite honestly, going back to Red Bull just doesn't make any sense to me. The one thing that I've tried to make clear in this video is that with Gasly's recent performances, we now have to view him through the lens of someone who maybe could challenge for a world title. And as good as he is, and even if the Red Bull suited his style more in the new era, Pierre Gasly is not Max Verstappen and he's never going to be. So if he's happy for the peak of his career to be a solid number 2, who racks up wins and podiums in great cars for season after season, up against a driver like Verstappen, then great. But if he really believes that he's good enough to challenge for a title one day, then I just don't see the point in returning to Red Bull, even if he's given the opportunity in 2023. The next team is Mercedes, which is actually a pretty interesting scenario. Now, I will just say and get this out of the way that as I'm recording this in January of 2022, there are still these rumors which are questioning whether or not Lewis will even return to F1 in 2022. Now, I'm not here to talk about that, but if, and this really is a big hypothetical if Lewis Hamilton does leave Mercedes high and dry at the last second, Pierre Gasly is by far the most suitable option, and if Mercedes really want him for 2023 in that hypothetical scenario, then they'll either find a way to buy him out of his contract, or more likely Pierre has an exit clause anyway if a top team came calling. But beyond that and looking into the future, unless George Russell is a massive flop and gets dropped for 2023, which I seriously doubt, the big problem with the Mercedes thing is that it all depends when Lewis leaves. Again, if Lewis calls it quits at the end of the 2022 season, a year earlier than he's contracted, then again, Gasly is the easiest fit. But if Lewis runs till the end of his contract, which means his last season will be in 2023, which means Pierre would be at Mercedes in 2024, that's a long time for Gasly to still be at AlphaTauri. And the problem is that it's all good being in a solid midfield team now and waiting for a bigger seat, but waiting until 2024? You don't know who's going to be performing well by then, and Gasly by that point might not even be the best option. The Mercedes option is a tantalizing one, but the timing has to be right, and I think waiting too long for it might put Pierre out of sync with some of the other drivers, who might not even be in Formula 1 right now. 2 years is a very long time in Formula 1, and a lot can change in just that short span of time. In terms of Ferrari and McLaren, when it comes to Ferrari, I think they're more of a long shot. Something seriously drastic would have to change, like either of their drivers, Leclerc or Sainz, getting dropped for anything to open up. But even then, kind of similar to the Red Bull situation, if you put Gasly at Ferrari up against Leclerc or Sainz right now, would he be able to beat either of those two? I'm just not sure, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'd just be hesitant to step into Ferrari looking at how good their lineup is right now. However, when it comes to McLaren, this is actually the most realistic option that I genuinely could see. I will say that it all depends on how Ricciardo does in 2022 and whether or not the team think that Gasly would be an upgrade at the end of the season. This could happen in 2023, and I think a lineup of Gasly and Norris would be a very strong one. It's still a little bit of a tricky situation from the Gasly point of view because the way Norris has built that team around him and with the pace that he showed in 2021, it will take some serious work from Gasly to beat Norris if they get into a title fight. But this to me is the perfect opportunity in my opinion for Gasly to just go in, match Norris in terms of pace and results, and finally prove that he really is one of the best drivers on the grid. It's the perfect challenge in my eyes, and it's one that would answer all of my lingering doubts about his level against the very best. As far as the remaining teams lower down, this gets a little bit trickier because we need to see where these teams like Williams, Alpine and Aston Martin are going to be in this brand new generation. Because going off the back of 2021, which is all I can do at the moment, those teams weren't even as quick as AlphaTauri, although I do still think that they have more potential. If you watched my video last year where I also talked about Gaslys' future, then you will know that I thought Williams would actually be a very good place for Gasly in 2022. He would have taken the team over as a number one, with it being undoubtedly his team. And if Albon does fail this season, then I do still think that it could be a good project for Pierre to build up his own team with everything and everyone around him. Despite all of that, we do still need to see where Williams will actually be, and if Gasly is even interested in a project, or if he's only interested in one of the more established teams, because there's no doubt that Williams is definitely still a risk. As far as Alpine and Aston Martin, I don't see anything opening at Alpine. They already have a very solid driver lineup, and even if one of their current drivers leaves, they have got a very special talent in Oscar Piastri just waiting on the sidelines. I've actually recently done a video talking about the Alpine driver dilemma, which goes into way more detail, so if you are interested, give that one a watch and I'll have a link in the description. The last realistic team I'm going to talk about is Aston Martin. Now, this to me is a very, very interesting choice for Pierre, but it all depends on the form of their drivers in 2022, and potentially the very unrealistic scenario of Lawrence Stroll maybe dropping his son Lance if he underdelivers. Gasly to Aston Martin just makes so much sense in my opinion because, firstly, just as a driver lineup, Gasly and Vettel is potentially a very strong combination, although there would have to be just a little bit of caution there because the last two times that Seb has been paired up with younger teammates, it hasn't exactly ended well for him, and Gasly would not be coming into that team to be the number two. He would want to beat Seb, and that would need to be very carefully managed by Aston Martin. Pierre Gasly jumping on the train of building up Aston Martin as they go through this big push in the next 3, 4, 5 years, I could genuinely see him finally having his own team and building up a project full of potential with an exciting brand. This feels like a project that would be ideal for Pierre, but he needs to be proactive. He needs to tell Aston Martin that he is an option if he also believes that he could see himself be there for the long term. Either way, Gasly to me needs to make a move by the end of 2022. This man has shown that on speed alone he deserves to be given a chance in a better car, or at least a team with more potential. But now it's down to him to either take the bold choice of leaving or another team to give him the opportunity, because he needs to make sure that he doesn't get left behind by waiting at AlphaTauri for too long. Well, there you have it, another video wrapped up. Don't forget to let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below, and also where do you personally rate Pierre Gasly amongst the absolute best in Formula 1? I'm talking the Hamiltons, the Russells, the Leclercs. How does he now compare to those drivers? Let me know all of your thoughts in the comments box below, and also where you think he should go next. And if you did enjoy this video, then don't forget to drop it a like and smash that subscribe button to support the channel. And as always, I will see you in the next one.